That's such a cool background. I unironically was like, that's a neat green screen, but I bet that's real.
No, it's real. That's one of the latest acquisitions.
What am I looking at? A convertible Lamborghini?
It is, yeah. It's a 2009 manual transmission LP640. I love really, really cool cars with really, really bad stories, and this one certainly has it. Actually, Ralph Lauren ordered it brand new, as well as an identical one, and didn't take delivery of either. And so this guy from New Jersey just bought it and would drive it around like a normal car. And whenever he'd bump into something, he would just spray paint over it. So he carried around a can of Rust-Oleum. And so when I got it, it was literally spots spray painted all over. The paint was chipping off in big chunks. And so, yeah, I mean, there was a long time where some of these cars were not terribly, well appreciated. And over the last, 3, 4, 5 years, they've, quadrupled in value. And so
who does that to a Honda?
No one.
Fair enough. Yeah. So it was peculiar. It has a couple of bad Carfaxes, but drives great.
Can you tell me the model number again, but slower? I don't know.
Sure. It's a 2009 Lamborghini Murcielago LP640 Roadster, and it's one of 10 U.S. cars with a true manual transmission.
Ooh. A true manual. So Ralph Lauren just ordered 2 and then couldn't be bothered to pick them up?
Correct. Yeah. So one of them ended up going to St. Louis. The other one stayed around. Yeah, exactly.
Well, let me ask you, because maybe you've got some insight into special customers like that and how cars are ordered. The next time Ralph Lauren wants a car and he goes back to me and says, hey, y'all have that new thing this year. I'd like 3 of those in yellow. I know you don't do yellow, but let's do yellow. My yellow, in fact. Ralph Lauren yellow. Are they go shove it up your ass? We had a hard time moving those last 2.
Only if they're currently having a hard time would they allow him to order another car. In general, like right now, every new car is obviously sold out for years. And so they're not indulging anybody who's treated them wrong in the past. But in these cases, yes, he probably burned that bridge. He doesn't buy a lot of new cars. That was kind of an interesting time for him. He buys a lot of very, very significant older cars, probably has a $200 million car collection or so. So
what do you think the most significant historical car to collect would be? Now, I got a couple in my head, and I don't know anything about this sort of thing. It's just a question that popped in my head. But I'm thinking the limo that Kennedy was in. Oh my God. Where's that thing? And whatever hoopty Archduke Ferdinand was in when he got popped. Those 2 in particular jump to mind.
He's a
for
good
sure.
one.
Also Bonnie and Clyde's car, but that's in a museum I know. I saw the Simpsons episode.
That's not as cool as the other ones you listed.
Yeah, so it varies when you think about the most significant vintage car that you'd want to own. Theoretically, the Bugatti Aerolith, if it was to exist, is probably a $200 million car. A Mercedes 300 SL race car just sold for $142 million. That set the record in last month, and they didn't actually do a very good job of marketing that sale. Prior to that, the most expensive car to sell was a 250 GTO. There's 39 of those, and they're worth about 70 or so.
How do you market a $140 million car? You just email the 2 guys on Earth who can afford it. Right? Marketing done.
And something happened in the deal because it was sold by Mercedes. It was still owned by them. It's one of 2 cars, and I think you had to agree that whenever they asked for it, you had to give it back for them to use however they wanted to. You had to pay them to maintain it. And I think that the 2 people that were interested in it ended up maybe splitting it. It was a really, really weird transaction because you're right. You don't just post it on Craigslist and say, who wants this $140 million car? And a lot of times the numbers get exaggerated. A couple of days ago, RM announced that they're going to sell a high downforce kit, McLaren F1. Then so that car's probably pushing 30 as a late build, and that'll be the most expensive car to sell.
Didn't even know cars were this much.
I watched a Jay Leno interview, and he was saying he doesn't like Ferrari. And it wasn't that he doesn't like the cars. He doesn't like working with Ferrari. One thing I've learned, I know one guy who can buy Ferraris. I'm not you. But he was in a Ferrari California, and he had to have that California and own it for a while to prove that he was a Ferrari guy before they allowed him to buy other cars that he actually wanted. And Jay Leno is like, this is horseshit. This is no way to, you should just sell me the cars that I'm really dreaming about.
Good for
and
Jay.
Not make me prove myself as a Ferrari aficionado. Do McLaren and Lamborghini and maybe Mercedes or whoever else sells cars in that class do that to their customers too?
To some extent, but not nearly to the extent that Ferrari does. I mean, Ferrari has a reputation of being very exclusive, and in reality, yes, they could sell 3 times as many cars, but the cars wouldn't retain the same value, and they don't necessarily have the ability to produce that many cars. And so, they're all sold out. It's not as though they're alienating so many buyers that they're sitting on inventory. And so, from their perspective, I guess you have the business question, right? Do I build more cars, then make my cars worth less money? Or do I keep them, this desirable, this valuable, so that the customers that do get to buy them and have treated us well for decades, stay as happy as they are?
No, my question after watching Leno was, but you're Jay Leno. Are there different rules for you? Jay Leno's not the only interesting person who wants to buy a Ferrari. Do you think they'd have different rules for Leno?
They all have different rules for celebrities and influencers, things like that. I've tried to buy a couple of very rare Ferraris because I've only owned pre-owned ones. And you say you're not wealthy enough to buy a Ferrari, but I've never lost money on one. They don't really go down in value. So as long as you buy them the right way and take reasonably good care of them, they go up. So if you or I walk in, even with our following, we don't count enough to get any preferential treatment. But once you did, you'd still have to play by the rules. You might get an extra leg up. You might actually get to order like the standard range car that you wanted. If it were a brand new F8 Tributo or something like that, you could probably get your way into one of those cars. But if you wanted something like they just brought out a $2.3 million SP3 Daytona that they're limiting to less than 1,000 cars, and no, we can't just go buy one, even if you are somebody special, because they have that many customers that are that valuable to them.
So we're not special enough to get special treatment. Are there YouTubers who are? Do they look at PewDiePie and be like, I really enjoyed your Happy Wheels
I
videos?
bet Mr. Beast could get one and like give it away. It's like, hey, if you give us one of these, every kid on earth will know what your brand is. It's like, okay. Like all the future YouTube billionaires will think you're cool.
They don't actually need people to know. That's their newest car that we can't buy. And it's super cool. It'll be probably their last like newly developed, naturally aspirated V12 car. It's fast and has almost, I think, 900 horsepower, and it revs to over 9,000 RPM, which is super cool for an engine that's that big. So there's a lot of cool things going for it. Exactly. Yeah. So, but they're all sold out. And,